Hello, hello, and welcome back to the UpSet podcast. If it's Sunday, it's the UpSet podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Latasha Hewitt, but I never come alone. I have the most wonderful crew. It's the most wonderful time, so it's the most wonderful crew in all the land. What's up, guys?
Hello,
Hey,
everyone.
Happy Sunday.
Yeah.
Sunday.
Tosh, I love your decorations. They are still so gorgeous as they were last week.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you. I think I'll keep
What's
them.
wrong with my
Christmas
decoration?
time.
All right. I think, Chuck, we have the same decorator, you and I.
Yeah. Well, at least I have an open door that I did by mistake.
I love it. I love it. Well, this has been quite a week. I just talking to different people. Everyone seems to have been so busy with so many different things. I know Marlena, recently we were at PELC, Pastoral Evangelism and Leadership Council, which is a conference that happens down there in Huntsville, Alabama.
Dr. Grissom was there. Good to see Dr. Grissom again. He was there.
Yeah, one of our faithful viewers. And I met a lot of people from all over who are UpSet watchers, and we appreciate your support. So hello to all of you out there joining us right now. It's always nice to meet you in person.
Amen.
Yeah, we saw you, Rodney. And please, as you have been, come up and introduce yourselves to us when you see us. We love that part of things. But yeah, PELC was great. How'd you enjoy it, Marlena?
It was great. I mean, when I left, I felt so high. It was really,
Beg
really
pardon?
good.
So they were serving.
Why did I use that word?
I know, you're
Holy Ghost high. Let me be specific.
Okay.
So that's the brand.
Holy Spirit high. All right.
Oh, we have a friend from El Paso there.
Yes,
Yeah.
hello there.
Right.
Holy Spirit Vineyards.
It was really, really good.
I heard it was a really good PELC.
It
you know.
was really
I
good.
was a
I
little
mean,
surprised.
I was there for the first PELC. I believe it was in 1977 at Oakwood.
Wow.
Yeah, 1977,
Wow.
and it has really grown nicely.
oh, your name
Yeah.
did come up while we were there, Tally.
It
It
did?
sure did.
Someone did a shout out to you that you were very inspirational in their lives. One
Oh,
of
wow.
the preachers.
Mhm.
Oh, that must have been my friend and brother, and I used to be his pastor, Keith Goodman.
That's right.
No,
Yeah.
did it come from Keith?
Yes, he mentioned him.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I thought that
mentioned
somebody
him.
else did too. So, okay. All
Yeah,
right, very
Tally
good.
was mentioned more than once down there.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was more than
Yeah.
once.
yeah.
Because I was
That's-
remember someone else
that's
mentioning
humbling.
his name.
Wow.
You feel
yeah.
humble? I'm
It-
about to
it's
pass
humbling.
out sitting in the chair.
No, I mean, really. Normally, when I'm talked about down at PELC, it has nothing to do with inspiring people. Right?
Good evening to everyone.
And then your
Wow.
face was on they did a
The Message
spotlight
Mag.
for the Message magazine.
Yeah.
And they
Oh,
had
yeah,
your
yeah.
face up there.
I have,
So
I
you
have
were there.
very-
You at PELC.
I should have come. I should have showed up. I look forward
always
to.
next year.
I look forward to coming at some point.
Well, you should. It's really worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a great time. It was a great time. So, aside from our adventures news, what else has been on your
Yes,
timeline?
we are all excited that BG is back home from Russia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brittany
Yeah.
Griner,
Of
that
course,
she's
that's the
back. Thank
big
God.
story.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We've seen a lot of commentary on that.
I had the privilege of speaking with the White House press secretary, Karine.
Oh, you did.
Jean-Pierre,
Really?
to talk about her release. That was real privilege. Brilliant woman, but the other thing we were talking about is what we traded for her, which is a significant
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
That gentleman, Boot, has sold and delivered more weapons into African nations, leading to hundreds of thousands of deaths. So
Wow.
it's something to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
but the
when-
offer was her or nothing.
That's
what
true.
do you do?
Yeah. Look, I think it was a good. I think you just have to hold your nose and make the trade, but it
Well,
was something.
my spin on it is, I know that Boot was a trafficker or seller of weapons, but so does the United States. We do
That
the
is
same
very
thing.
true, Charles. Very true. Very
And
true.
we're the only ones that can't be brought up before the World Court, about some of the atrocities that we have done and are still doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia, we'll move on from there. That's all I need to say.
Yeah.
But I find it interesting that this country is so, what's the word?
Fascinated with guns.
Self-righteous.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
True
the
that.
U.S. says you are a trafficker of weapons, of, master. And yet,
Yeah.
when you think about it,
Yeah. That's
who
a good
was the
point.
only country in the world that vaporized hundreds of thousands of people with 2 atomic bombs?
That is very true.
All right, so we'll move on from there. That's another show. But the other thing I wanted to say was, I thought it was very gracious of the Whelan family
Yeah.
to say that they were happy that Brittany is home.
Yeah.
But they are all still heartbroken over the fact that their
My brother and
family,
father,
Marine is still in Russia. And it was interesting doing a press conference that her family says that they are supporting. I'm sorry, the Brittany's family is supporting the Whalens and trying to get their loved one out of Russia as well. So there were a lot of takeaways from this story. Some opportunities for people to show, compassion and empathy, as well as, and I salute the Biden administration for doing this. I mean, it's good for her to be home with her family, but there are other pieces of the story and background that I think is worth researching on. But,
Absolutely.
Well, I have a good news story that it just reminds us of the indomitable quality of human love. A Marine by the name of Richard McKinney, who had been in war, killed a lot of people over in Afghanistan and other places, came back with such hatred in his heart for Muslims that he went to a mosque that had grown up in the town where he lived in Indiana, deciding that he was going to blow it up and kill as many Muslims as he possibly could. He went to visit it, and upon arriving, he was greeted with such love. One of the leaders of the mosque, hugged him in such a way, and then they invited him home for dinner. Make a long story short, Richard McKinney, a Marine who had his heart set on murdering, he said hundreds if he could, ended up joining the mosque and marrying one of the women in the mosque. And it is such a story of what love can do to a calloused heart. I mean, it's just a beautiful story.
So this is a testimony of something that happened years ago.
No, this just happened.
So he just married somebody just like that?
He after a while, he married a woman from the mosque, and there's a documentary out on it. It's called Strangers at the Gate. It was just released. It received an award at one of the New York film festivals, and it's an extraordinary story that needs to be told, because love can do amazing things.
Covers a multitude of sins.
So one of the stories that has gone somewhat viral, everyone thinks that they're a political and sports analyst, but Deion Sanders, aka Primetime, leaving an HBCU and going to Colorado State. Now, a lot of folks are mad, calling him a sellout and all sorts of names. But you can feel how you want about it. But at the end of the day, each and every person who cares about those historically Black colleges or universities should send something to those schools on a regular basis, even if it's just $1. Don't just talk about Deion. Think about what can you do to support a Black institution. That's all I'll say for now.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of back and forth on that. We always like to tell everybody what they should be doing, people in those positions, but even in our own seats, we'll take the bigger job. We'll leave the organization. We'll do whatever it takes to get more money or whatever, but we don't want anyone else to do it. And so, I saw a lot
and
about
he
that.
will open a lot of doors for other Black coaches in those top college schools. And so, it's sad to see him leave HBCU, but he did a lot in a short tenure. And so I'm not going to talk bad about Deion.
And he had 300 million reasons to make that move.
Mercy.
I'm not hating on him. I'm not. Now, what about the World Cup? Have you guys been watching?
I haven't been following, but I see some
haven't.
things
No.
every now and again on my
Yeah.
social media timeline. Is Argentina winning or something? I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, they did win. Brazil lost,
Brazil. I was gonna say Brazil was one of the favorites.
Yeah.
A little
I'm
disappointed.
still having trouble wrapping my brains around it, calling it football.
Well, I mean,
they have they're saying
theirs is actually
using their
football.
feet.
I mean,
They
yeah.
think our football is
Like,
handball.
Ours is throw ball. Yeah.
I heard someone say that if all of the people from African nations played for their native countries, there'll be a different outcome on these games. You know, a lot of these teams have people who aren't literally from their country playing for their team. So, you know, that's another conversation. But hey, teams are teams, and people have a right to play for whoever they want to. But when you talk about loyalty and commitment, that's a whole different conversation. But yeah.
You know what? Before we go to our guest, Mike Williams makes an excellent point.
I saw that.
I'll tell you, that is spot on.
Yeah.
Because it's very sad. And it's still to this day. And I know a lot of female basketball players. I mean, you know, they just play basketball. They're not
and the soccer
semi-pro or pro.
players.
And, it's a sad state of affairs in the United States that we can't
and you see, I love Anthony Daniels' comment. He says the World Cup shows the results of colonization.
That's true.
Yeah.
Love that.
That is true.
Good points.
Something to think about.
Yep, definitely. All right. Well, tonight, last week we were talking about, kind of the frenzy of Christmas and, the gift giving and, even some of the joys of it, some of the things that we do too much of, some of the things, remembering it's the most happy time of the year. But the reality is that is not the case for everybody. This time of the year often brings for some people a lot of anxiety, depression, whether it's reliving or thinking about loved ones who are not going to be joining them for the holidays this year, or just something that seems to come over them during this particular time of the year. And so, we like to balance out any conversations we have on the podcast. So we want to be sensitive to those who right now aren't feeling like this is the most wonderful time of the year, who aren't feeling the happiness and joy of which we were speaking. And so we really wanted to kind of dive into the subject because this is a real thing. This is not just some bypass. This is actually something clinical that's been proven that happens during this particular time of the year. And so we wanted to bring on a guest who could share a little bit more with us about the topic. And so we invite you even now, share this with others because even if they're not going through it, they may have a family member, someone, a coworker who right now is really down and needs some type of support or help. So this is a conversation we're hoping can help you and those around you. And so without further ado, let's bring on our special guest.
Hey, thank you.
All right.
Hello.
Hi, welcome. Welcome
Thanks
to the
for being
UpSet.
here. I need to be a part of this conversation every day, man. I was hearing things behind the chat and I had to get my fingers active.
Yes, join us. We're here every Sunday. But for our viewers, Rob, tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. And I'll make it simple for the conversation we're having today. I'm just a licensed professional counselor, licensed in the District of Columbia. I've been doing this since 2017. Fully licensed for the last 2 years, going on more, and just passionate about wellness. Like, I don't even just want to say mental health. I'm passionate about wellness. Like, it's okay to be well, y'all. It's okay.
It's a good thing. Yeah.
So I think that's what really matters to frame our conversation today for everyone else to know about me. And if you want to know more, find me, talk with me. You'll learn everything else you need to know through probably one good conversation.
All right. Thank you. And welcome again. So we talk about this, the title of our episode today is SAD for the holidays, and that's using the acronym SAD, Seasonal Affective Disorder. Now, for those who are not familiar with this terminology, can you kind of just break down what that is exactly?
Yeah. Well, right now, it's a term that the good old folks who put together the DSM, which is the Diagnosis Disability Manual, felt like we needed to make a shift for, because it used to just be called seasonal depression. That's it. You just used to be depressed seasonally.
Yeah.
But now it is seasonal affective disorder. And really what that means is during particular times of the year, usually grouped into the halves of the seasons, summer, spring, and fall, winter. Now I made sure to say both because summer, spring can happen. It's not as common, of course, but it can happen. People are typically more aware of the fall, winter. And then during that time, you just don't feel like yourself. I mean, you are not feeling good. You are down. You are tired. You're not the you that likes to be out there in them streets. And then for the Christian folks, like to be at all the Christian events during the summer. Just during the winter, you're like, I'll do virtual church. I'll stay in my bed, catch my prayers by my bedside. So that to me is a good summation of seasonal affective disorder.
Okay. Now I think some of us are wondering, maybe if this may be us because a lot of what you described is some of the waves that we experienced. But since we are kind of in this Christmas season, the winter time even, the holidays present a lot of different demands from people cooking meals and shopping and baking, cleaning, preparing to entertain a lot of people. And even, with the pandemic not being over, that adds a lot of stress to people because, what they're used to doing, maybe with family, they're not able to do. They're having to curb a lot. And some people find themselves just overly stressed during the holidays. What would you say, first of all, I mean, I know you kind of talked about it before, but what are some of the signs that may not be as obvious that you may be experiencing sad or right now?
Let me put out two that it's probably more common than we think, but also not known.
Okay.
So you eat a little bit more, but specifically what you eat is a craving for the carbohydrates.
I'd heard
Put that out there.
Okay.
So it's like, it's okay to like your salad. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me not do that. That's the wrong thing. So I'm thinking Italian. It's okay to like your pastas. But come, late September when every meal from Monday to Friday is a pasta base, right? You go spaghetti, rigatoni, rotini. I mean, you've gone through all the fancy names, sauced it down. You might be feeling something.
Wow.
And if you really think about the why, right? If I can quickly break that down, the carbohydrates are the things that we know give us that quick boost of energy.
Right.
They also pack around the midsection, but they give us a quick boost of energy. And our bodies are so intuitive that we don't even realize our bodies are trying to say, like, we need something to get through this.
Yeah, I will appreciate your not looking down at me in the square the next time you say that. But Rob, my understanding is that women are more predisposed. I remember reading once that premenopausal women were predisposed to this craving of carbohydrates and being impacted by this seasonal disorder. Is that can you?
Come on, Tally, that's the truth right there. Yes, women are more affected than men. And actually, you know what? I didn't do a good job of breaking down the heart of S.A.D, which is a deficit how do I put this? A lack of or an impact on two of the chemical things that really regulate our cycles, right? That's melatonin and that's serotonin.
Wow.
Okay. And so I put that out there because during the winter months, fall months, those two chemicals are impacted by the natural change of the season. Okay. Days get shorter.
Yeah.
Your sleep cycle is altered because, in America, you had daylight savings time, right? Which kind of feels like a benefit, but if you got kids, that sucker is a disruptor. You know what I'm saying? Sorry, I'm about to get a segue because I was a little upset.
Right.
I got my first kid. We had on a good schedule, and it's daylight savings time. Just like, whoop, throw it all out. That don't matter. And so really you find the impact there. And as you said, Tally, for women, they're finding that imbalance is more prevalent in women. And so they are more prone to try to adjust that through eating, which can be helpful. But as we know, anything that is tried to be manipulated through diet alone as a feeling usually ain't the best. A lot of us eat our feelings.
Rob, let me ask you something. Are these markers or data points prevalent primarily in Western cultures? And if it is, how is it different in other cultures?
I wouldn't be able to speak to that. To be honest, I wouldn't be able to speak to that. What I can say is S.A.D is going to be impacted where you are
Geographically?
Thank you.
on the map.
On the map, yeah. That's how we say it in North Philly, you know. How you're impacted on the map, right? In your neighborhood, right?
So let's think about, right, people that are in the Northeast or you're closer towards the polar points, right? You're going to experience, let's say, like, let's keep it a buck, like Alaska. There's a reason why their suicide rates are so high. And not just S.A.D, but depression is prevalent in places like Alaska, New England, Maine, your Vermont, like the New England area, so Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, that whole area, Boston. Like, individuals up there are more prone to be impacted by S.A.D because the days are shorter, just a little bit. Now, you may think a minute or two is not a big deal. It is if many of us leave our house and it's dark, and we get back home and it's dark.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you are not privileged to have an office that has, floor to ceiling windows, you didn't see nothing but indoor fluorescent lights all day, which is not enough it's not enough sunlight, right? Not enough energy. You didn't get up and move around, but around the office. And so you find yourself down. And then what you said, Tasha, is also true, right? Because now you add the pressures of, okay, well, I got to leave work to go home, make sure to cook this meal. Who's coming over for Thanksgiving? Who's coming over for whatever holiday that you're celebrating during the end of the year, whether it be Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, whatever. You're trying to put that together. Oh, I got to go out and buy gifts. Oh, that's right. We lost so-and-so this time. They're not going to be around the table. So you put all that together. Right. And just normally, if you just to take out anything else, just have those stresses there, you're going to be you're going to have trouble sleeping.
Let me ask you, Rob, from one cultural point of view, I'm wondering what your spin is or your response to marketing. I know that marketing, I read a book some years ago, very good book if it's still in print. It's called A Sponsored Life, where we watch advertising, television, radio, get gifts, go buy your girlfriend a BMW, and you work at Walmart. I mean, it's we are bombarded.
Buy the girl a bus pass.
That's your last date, buddy, a bus pass.
Right.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. But we're bombarded with advertising, and these marketers are professionals.
Yeah.
At knowing how the mind works and how it can be manipulated.
Absolutely.
And so, here you are, you may be paycheck to paycheck, and you're being bombarded with Christmas gifts and all these nice families, together. And, it's just, and the snow is falling and the rain, it's just so, and here you're trying to pay the rent. And now you're feeling like, well, not only can I not, or I'm struggling to put food on the table, but I can't buy gifts. So because I know at one time in my life, struggling and, trying to make ends meet. And then I get hit with the holidays and I'm going to spend what money to have a happy holiday?
Chuck. All right. I got so much in my brain. Your question would lead me to, in a way, villainize marketers for presenting to us hope. If you really think about what marketers are doing, are presenting to us hope. They're also doing their job, so shout out to them, right? But they're just
hope.
Presenting us hope.
Yeah,
right?
hope I get some money to buy some gifts. Yeah.
All right.
No, I just think that there's a lot of undue pressure. I think
so it is when you go to church, right? And the pastor's like, "Hey, end of the year, don't forget to return your tithe that much. Make it right with the Lord." Like, if we're gonna do that,
right.
There are some ministers that use that same tactic to
square up with God. Square up with
exactly.
God.
And so, what I wanted to say, really address with that whole marketing angle, is I think just like there's a treatment for S.A.D, which is CBT. I am personally passionate about self-awareness. If you are self-aware, I love when I see those. There was a recent commercial where the wife whistled, or the husband whistled, the dog came up through the snow, and I was like, "Oh, look, he got her a dog," and she whistled.
Hell yeah!
He got a truck. I was like, "Oh, that's dope." Looked at my wife. You can keep on whistling, Chief. You can keep on whistling. It's not happening to you, right? I'm self-aware enough. Let me put this way, I'm self-aware enough to know that that's a really cool feeling, right? It'd be nice to do something well for your partner if you can. I can do that for my partner within my means. Right? That commercial is going to reach a certain person that can afford that. That's good and well for them. For me, I'm not. And I think that's okay. But that takes self-awareness. That takes this looking in the face of self-judgment that a lot of us carry. Right? Because if I can't do that, then I'm not good or I'm not well. And that's not the case. You're just not there yet. Don't put that in your spirit. You're just not there yet. Where you are is like where our boy Tally is. You can give her 2 gift cards. You can give her 2 gift cards this year. 1 for McDonald's, right? And 1 for the bus so she can get there. That's what I can do this year. Take it or leave it. What I think marketers are really doing, Chuck, is their job first and foremost, and playing off the hope and the energy of the season. And if we're conscious of it, we don't have to allow that to settle in our spirit.
That's right.
The reality is
mind,
not many of us are self-aware enough to be conscious of that.
Yeah. In my mind, I think it triggers wishful thinking. And not everybody can handle wishful thinking. And that's not just with advertising, but it was entertainment, movies, whatever. You go see your favorite actor and he's this real Rambo guy. And it's like, yeah, I'd like to be like that, or I'm going to be like that, and so forth and so on. I just think while marketers are doing their job, they are also triggering wishful thinking, which could lead to SAD.
Absolutely. And I still stand in this camp of I'm not going to knock them, which is why I take passionately what I do to increase self-awareness. Because if we're self-aware, that's true. I looked at Michael B. Jordan. I want to be all the way honest for myself. I looked at Michael B. Jordan in the first Black Panther and I got sad. I was just sad. I don't even know what season it was. I think the first Black Panther came out, was it in the holiday season? Or it was maybe summer? I was sad.
It was summer.
I was sad, right? Because I looked at his body and I said, wow, he has at least 4 more abs than I do. And I really want to do that. The reality is I was aware of where I was. Michael B. Jordan, that's his job, right? His job is to look good. You know what my job is? To make sure that my family is taken care of. And if I get to the gym, beneficial. Chuck, I'm going to always, if you speak to me long enough, you're going to know I'm going to drill down self-awareness. It's why I'm in therapy. Is because there are so many things that are unlocked for us the moment we become aware of who we are. Because contextually, I am freed up from the reality that as much as I'd like to be Michael Jordan, that's a wishful thinking, the sacrifice that it might take for me to do so will come at a cost that I don't want to pay right now. Because that would mean neglect of my family, my child, potentially my own mental wellness. So I'm going to look good physically, but I may not be right up here because I've been in the gym all day and I'm trying to focus on the protein. When it comes to SAD, there's a reason why CBT has been super effective, because a lot of times people, and I say CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, has been really effective, is because we are sometimes ignorant, no knock, of the connections between how our thoughts influence our behaviors. And there's another, RABT, which is rational motor behavioral therapy, actually includes the emotion side of it. So what we feel influences what we think, which influences what we do, which in turn influences again how we feel, and there's just a cycle that turns around and around and around.
Yeah, in responding, I agree with you on the Michael B. Jordan thing. I told somebody, look, why have a 6-pack when you can have a whole keg? And so, but we'll let that stand. But just to back up a little bit, what Charles is saying, okay, we won't blame the marketers for their marketing, but let's talk a little bit more about the expectations that are exponentially magnified now with social media. You see a commercial and it says you ought to be able to buy your girlfriend a BMW. And then you look online and all of your friends appear to be having more fun than you're having, with more money than you got, going more places that you've never been. Maybe CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, would tell us that we need to monitor how much of this stuff we take in during the season.
I agree. How conscious are we of that, though? Because at the core of it, like we talked about, what's being pushed out there is hope, right? The hope of having these things. These things appear to bring joy and happiness. I kind of want that. That's great. And it's okay to want that. Without self-awareness, you're going to want that without context, without understanding, and as you have put out the 2 words you look like, wishful thinking, right? But if you're self-aware, it's like, yeah, you know what, I really do want to be happy, and I realize that I'm scrolling here and looking at these fools and I'm getting sad. I'm going to put it down. I going to take this opportunity for everyone needs to hear it, that self-awareness is key. And all it is being honest about where you are, which I bring back to SAD. Like, it's okay to realize during the season you don't feel the same. Like, it's okay to look matter of factly and go, yeah, I'm a little bit more tired than I used to be. I'm gonna say that's okay. That is honestly okay. That is you paying attention to your body and listening.
Yeah, Rob. So there are some people who, at the beginning of the year, they have a list of things that they're going to do and going to accomplish throughout the year. And is it possible that some of these unmet expectations or things that they didn't do that they plan to do, how much of an impact can those disappointments in your personal or professional life or social life play into SAD?
So you're talking about New Year's resolutions, like those type things.
Yeah, or goals that you had, but at the end of the year, when you realize what you didn't do or what you could have done, and you're in reflection mode, can that play a part into SAD, or is it all strictly just other things?
I would say it can play a part, if only for the idea that it further makes you look at the loss, because a lot of the reasons that people, why SAD can get worse, I don't say the reasons why SAD can get worse is when we look at the things that we think about and how they influence an already potential chemical imbalance, already deficit in other areas. And so, yeah, if I look back at the year and say I didn't do this and I wanted to do this and this didn't happen, there's a focus on loss there. What isn't present, what you don't have. Just like, I wish the days were longer. I don't have longer days, right? I wish I could sleep less. And so when you focus on that loss, you're naturally going to be sad. Who wants to feel at a loss? Anyone? Does anyone want to feel at a loss? Except for weight. I'd love to feel at a loss of weight, but outside of that,
you look down at me again, Rob.
I was looking down at my pack.
Oh, okay.
No one likes to feel that way. So again, I emphasize how much the way we think influences SAD. But let me emphasize, if you're experiencing SAD, most likely you're not at fault. There's nothing that you specifically thought of that created this catalyst or put you on this track to experiencing SAD, to feeling depressed, right? Usually if you're feeling depressed or if you're experiencing SAD, it is because of a deficit chemically that is at play, right? The lack of sunlight influences more people than we think, right? And if we'll be honest, going to the cultural part, many of Black Americans come from areas and places in the world that you experience more sunlight than not. So if you go to some place where it's darker and then you add other cultural and systemic things, yeah, I'm going to be more likely to be sad than other people. Right. So
Rob, I've known about SAD for a while, but I thought I'm learning something different tonight, because I really thought it impacted those who had a great loss of a loved one at this time, loss of a job, loss of a marriage, something major like that. And I just wondered, I understand the treatment process, and I wanted to know, over the years, does it help those who are, really suffering the loss of a loved one at this time? I just heard of someone who took their wife to the doctor or something like that. She was diagnosed with pneumonia and died the same night very quickly. And the first thing I thought, man, seasonal depression, right, is going to occur, at Christmas time, when everybody is so happy, yet and still, it reminds them of their loss. And so, death is hard to endure, and I know you learn to live with it. But in your experience, over the years, does this get better with those who have, a major impact like that?
Does SAD get better?
Yeah, the symptoms, do they diminish over time, over the years?
It depends, because I feel like we're conflating two things. You can have SAD alone, and then your SAD can be exacerbated or feel that much more when coupled with grief. And so I might say that, yes, it gets better because you've adjusted your grieving process, right? You've become the grief has been integrated into your life, right? That loss has been fully integrated, and you've come to understand your loss better, and you're able to live with it. Though your SAD is still existed because it was there either beforehand or happened to have started simultaneously. What I may say is, based on what we're talking, is I think a lot of people may feel that they're experiencing SAD, where they might be experiencing a bunch of subset feelings being grouped together. So I might
So
be
even if they
feeling,
lost someone years ago, I knew this lady, she hated Christmas because it was around the time she lost her mom, but it was like years and years ago.
yeah. So that made me, I as a clinician may wonder if that loss is fully integrated, right? Or if she had that loss and she may legitimately have developed SAD, right? Seasonal affective disorder over time. Or there's another, the cognitive side of that is there could be a cognitive chain where Christmas is where I lost my mom. That makes me sad. So therefore, Christmas makes me sad. And so because without conscious, again, self-awareness, conscious self-awareness, your brain just goes, oh, it's the holidays, we feel sad. And we feel sad because of our mom, without realizing that these two things can kind of exist separately. Like Christmas can be, and you can feel sad about your mom. And so I think it's important to be careful about that, which is also the challenge of this season, which is, I think you guys talking about this, is because this season both diametrically brings about this idea of hope and happiness that some people enjoy, and positivity and love and grace, right, and renewal. That can sometimes really make the loss that we feel because of this time that is influenced by other things. Again, we can't separate the systemic issues that may allow sadness to exist, both sadness as the emotion and sadness as the disorder, to exist among people who are more apt to experiencing these type of losses. So Chuck, you brought out the wishful thinking. Yeah, people of color who already probably thrive more on sunlight than other people, right, now live in a country where they have limited access to resources, where they are treated with clear bias, right, and hostility, then come upon a season where they don't see even representations to them on TV. Small segue, I got excited when finally Hallmark put a couple Black folk on a Christmas movie. I was like, oh, we can experience love and magic too. Look at God. So think about the years before that. Look at the years before that where we didn't have representation. And so now you come into this season wanting to be hopeful and excited while realizing and knowing, maybe even internally, just spiritually, that this season really don't represent the joys that I can experience because there's so many losses. Such and such got a bonus. I work at an hourly job. The bonus is if I chose to stay an extra hour. That was the bonus because I worked for it.
Overtime.
And so now these things can sometimes be, as we like to say, comorbid or get conflated together. And so now it's like, oh, I don't like this season. And it may not be sad, the disorder. It may be the reality of the lives that we live. And I like to tell my clients sometimes, to be honest, like some things, when you look at them, it makes sense. We lost Tally.
Yeah.
Rob, yeah, that might be a temporary internet drop or something.
There he is.
Anyway,
Okay.
either that or he's sad. Anyway.
Okay,
no, the question I wanted to
Wrong
ask
button.
you, Rob, does pre-adolescent or adolescent trauma lead to a possibility of SAD later in life? There are traumas, I believe, that people experience even when they're children, and they still have an effect on them as adults. What are your thoughts on that? Can trauma that has not been dealt with contribute to SAD?
Yes, and it can, because trauma can contribute to any number of other mental health disorders if left unchecked. So I want to be really clear about that. I'm sure the answer is yes, right? I can say confidently yes, if left unchecked, because trauma, period, can influence and lead to other mental disorders if not checked. It begins in young adulthood, right? We most likely see it there. It's also because at that stage, you see some other disorders. So SAD is usually comorbid with other mood disorders, bipolar, major depressive disorder, bipolar 1 and 2. And the reason you might see this in young adulthood is because during that age, when our body is going through the radical chemical changes that we know that it goes through, that results in the wonderful teen adolescent years. I can't wait for it. That's when we're more prone to see, right? Where these chemical imbalances come up. And yes, to your point, Chuck, the ACEs study, if you're familiar, I'm just going to kind of spit out a lot of good stuff. Adverse childhood experiences. They say if you have a certain number of ACEs in your childhood, you've experienced homelessness, loss of a parent, incarceration by a parent, abuse, whether it be sexual, physical, or otherwise, etc., that puts you at higher risk for living a shorter life or being exposed to other things. Well, if you imagine if that's the case, then during your adolescent years, when your body is trying to figure itself out and it's still holding on to, right, the mental and emotional traumas, how can your brain fully develop in the way it ought to? And we're already at a deficit because of SID. Thanks, y'all. Right? Like we're already, all of us, even the most healthy of us, is still at a deficit because of sin. So imagine what trauma does. Dr. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. Wrote the book The Body Keeps Score. And it's a wonderful book to really highlight how everything, right? How for so many years we've worked in silos, y'all. And this is the crazy thing about why I pursue wellness above everything else, because we worked in silos, right? We worked on the physical health. And then also, oh, wow, people aren't mentally well. So we focused on the mental health through psychology alone. And then people were like, well, what about the spiritual practices? People started to introduce spiritual integration of these things. And Dr. van der Kolk really acknowledged that it is a holistic approach. Our bodies keep all of this information one way, shape, or form, and it influences how we show up day to day. So Chuck, to your point, yes, it's very possible that our traumas make us or increase our predisposition for SAD because of the unresolved trauma that our bodies are holding on to, living in a survival mode as opposed to a thriving kind of mode.
And we want to go to our chat because we do have a few comments in there.
A few.
That's a few. While we're looking through some, there was one that stood out that I wanted to address. This is from Do What? He said, rejoice in the Lord always. We must go back to our first love, Christ, and remember what life we were saved from by grace with Christ. Nothing can keep us sad. Because this kind of brought me to a question that I was going to ask you about, should Christians even be experiencing these things? I mean, we're people of faith,
there it is, ladies and gentlemen. He's getting ready for this one, I tell you.
I felt the tightness in my body. I saw another comment where someone said, it's okay to feel, I think Daphne Bolden. I'm going to get to that comment, Tasha. The connector for me was like, it's okay to feel some type of way, but still be grateful and practice gratitude. Focus, continuous focus on being hopeful and happy regardless. It's excellent advice. Out of context, I want to punch you in the throat. I really don't want to, but like that's the equivalent to I'm grieving. You say, don't worry, they're going to be in a better place. God's got you. I don't want to hear that right now. Like now, I'm not in that space. And so when I hear rejoice in the Lord always, we must go back to our first love. Is it excellent advice? Yes. Out of context, it just pisses me off because I have to be in a place to perceive that. I have to be in a place to receive that. And without knowing it, I think Christians, and I want to say because of a fear, and I want to go back to a sermon series that Dr. Knight preached, and I was like, my man was speaking. He was my spirit animal for like 4 Sabbaths. We don't recognize how fear comes into play so much in our approach to responding, specifically to mental and emotional crises. Like we don't want to experience these things for fear that we're not good Christians. My wife she and I were discussing, and she brought up a lot of things in the Bible where you see somebody experiencing what would today be in both a emotional mental crises and probably one of the spirit, the demoniac and other such things, like for fear that we're going to be labeled that. No, I'm good. I'm happy. I'm always happy. Hey, look at my happy face. Right? I ain't never sad. You ain't gonna call me a demon. I'm never sad. Yes, you are. You are sad, and you can get better. And the Lord has probably already put things around you to help you on this journey. The issue is the self-judgment that we've internalized for what we consider negative feelings. Oh, y'all about to get me in the sermon right now.
Preach, sir.
It is frustrating, right? Because God designed us, which means our emotions play a purpose. And what I've come to practice and share with other people, emotions are information. They're meant to provide you with information about yourself. A lot of us are working from misinformation. Don't even take it in. And as a result, we're experiencing things in our bodies. And yes, Black people starts off in our bodies because we real sick and we got stomach aches and we got gastrointestinal issues. You want to drink tea for everything. We got headaches left and right. We got pains in our lower back and our upper back and our shoulder. We can feel it in our body because we refuse to feel it, period.
Mercy. Mercy.
And so in order to get to a place where I can express gratitude, I need to be honest about where I am, that right now I'm not grateful. And I don't feel like being grateful because I don't feel good. And when you can come to terms with that, when you can really look at that, it was also Pastor Marquise Johns that said, God can't save the person you pretend to be. So you bring in everything else but what you need to the altar. Instead of saying, Lord, I'm just not feeling it right now. Okay.
I remember once a well-meaning Christian went to counsel a family of someone whose loved one had died tragically, and said, "Don't you worry, don't be sad, because you loved your loved one, but God loved him best." And the kid said, "So is that why God hit him with a bus?" I mean, honestly, I mean, because sometimes in trying to help people, we can actually increase their pain by saying, not only have you suffered a loss, but you don't even know how to grieve correctly. And I appreciate, Rob, what you just said about that. You know,
Tally, that's also rooted in our discomfort with emotions, because not many of us are comfortable sitting in uncomfortable places. So I want to rush you through your discomfort because it doesn't feel good for me. Issue with empathy and compassion there is exactly what Christ was able to do. Oh, yeah. So like I look at the Bible, right? And everything I've learned clinically, I'm like, yo, Christ did that first, eons ago. He was effortlessly. Ooh, words are hard right now.
Geographical, yes.
Yeah. It's on the map, y'all. Wherever you're on the map. Effortlessly moving in ways that were clinical, that every clinician today, if you study, you're like, oh my gosh, Christ was a master at just sitting in silence. Christ was a master at allowing somebody to experience their own grief and hurt and pain, and then move to the next space. Right? Little things that we make small sermons out of. You don't realize that like Christ was trying to show y'all something. He's trying to let you know that, you know, these things will come. You will experience these things. And when we allow these experiences to exist in context, not out of in context, right? So I'm sad right now. I'm not sad forever, right? I'm not depressed. Okay. I'm experiencing a period of depression. I'm experiencing a period of sadness. I'm experiencing a period of hopelessness. Lord, that's what I'm experiencing right now. Much like he said to many individuals who had to run to caves and run out to fields and who found themselves in prisons and whatnot. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, that's rough. Okay, and that's, I love using the word and. Right? You can feel something and. We usually move from a but place in our lives. I feel this way, but I shouldn't. I don't want to. It doesn't feel good. And so what comes after, from my linguist, what comes after the but becomes the priority. But you can feel something and then make a decision to move forward. And so when I hear those scriptures, those are great. But like, can we give the person the space to kind of feel it first? Really let it just feel it. And then we can think about what to do.
I appreciate it. Dude, what seems to be persisting in his conviction. And you know, we understand that we all have differing opinions, but the apostles did speak about other emotions other than rejoicing, peace, and love. And so you know, we're whole and complete people. I appreciate, Rob, what you're saying about I can feel this now and not define myself by this momentary feeling I have. That's something that I think all of us would do well to incorporate in our life. But I just want to ask another question before we get toward the end, and that is, you make it clear that this is physiological, not simply emotional or psychological, but the darkness of the days and shortness of the days. So are there physical things? I've heard about these lamps that you can get that will assist you. Are there other physical things that you can do to kind of help yourself?
So light therapy is actually proven to treat and help manage SAD. The extra vitamin D that those lights provide, and individuals can sit under there for about 30 minutes. And fun fact, in comparison to CBT, they're actually both helpful except that CBT helps you manage over long term, right? So you can do light therapy, but it may not help you manage over the long term. Be aware of the triggers before the season, prep like that. Yeah, you can buy lights. You can also get up and move, right? So that cycle of impact. I don't feel good. I don't feel energy. So then I don't move, but then your body isn't pumping and working the blood and encouraging you to build energy. Kind of like when you work out, you feel like working out more, but if you don't work out, you don't feel like doing it.
Oh,
what are those lights? What are those lights? Will a lava lamp work?
No. These are
only
I'm just wondering.
You're trying to get groovy.
Trying to get off a little bit. No, these are special lights, vitamin D lights. Just like you can buy lights for your essentially like plants, right? You can buy special lights for your plants to provide them with that mock solar energy. These lamps are much the same. You sit under it for a little bit. That's one thing that we can do. If you don't have those lamps, you can be very intentional about getting up and going outside during the sunny days, right? During the days where it's bright, move. I love winter. I really do. I personally love winter. It's my honest to God favorite season of all. And here's where something I'm gonna say, and I tell my wife all the time. She didn't come downstairs. I dress for the season, right? I teach each season, just like it says Ecclesiastes. I know it's here for a season. So what I get a little annoyed by, because people have difficulty get up and moving during winter, is because you still want to go out in your summer clothes. It's not summer, right? Unless you living in Miami, y'all, I need you to put on a coat and maybe a layer or two. Get out and move around, exercise. And if that's not your kind of your speed, you can move out in your home. With YouTube, with social media, if you talked about before, the benefit is you can YouTube a 10-minute workout video, whatever, using a chair, your hands, body weight. You can do longer. You can go to the gym. Again, I like to actually get outside. I like to see nature in the different seasons. You can get out and move. You could also take some vitamin D supplements as well, because it could be a result of vitamin D deficiency. You can be very intentional about your sleeping habits, right? So set alarms. Be mindful. Going back to the food thing, be very intentional about what you eat. If you eat a lot of them carbohydrates, you're going to feel sluggish and slow. And the itis is a real thing. Right. I'm sure some doctor out there studied it, but the itis is a real thing. So eat lighter towards the evening. Have a salad with a protein. Okay. Maybe do a smoothie and a fruit, something that'll provide you with the calories that you need, but also doesn't weigh you down. So you're more inclined to be like, I'm going to take that extra hour and a half sleep.
See, he looked at me again. He looked at me again.
Rob, let me ask you this concerning older adults, seniors.
Yeah.
Some that are living alone, isolated. What are some of the things, if we suspect that there is a family member, a senior, or a neighbor, or a friend, or a church member that may be suffering from this?
Yeah.
Are there any things we can do to help in situations like that? For an elderly person, because, it's challenged with a lot of things. Of course, the aging process, and then there's possible dementia. Then there is lack of family interaction. All those things, can they contribute? And if they can, what can we do to help prevent, or at least, help someone out with it?
I'm gonna ask for forgiveness first, because I was like, we can just tell them to pray on it. And first, we should be honest in normalizing that what they might be experiencing is okay. Right? So become very conscious yourself of the symptoms. Be very mindful of what they are, and you can have a very honest conversation. That is one laced with curiosity and grace. Hey, I was wondering. I noticed. Talk about noticings, wonderings. And grace, like, I noticed that you may, you've been sleeping a bit more, or that you've been a little bit sluggish and low energy. I wonder if you might have seasonal affective disorder. Oh, if they're aware of it, cool. That's great. Great conversation. Great place to begin. I've heard that these are some things that we can do. Have you considered taking some dietary supplements? Maybe we can look into if your insurance might be able to get you UV lights, or would you be willing to take a walk with me once or twice a day when weather permitting, if you're able. I do believe it begins with compassion, right? So having an awareness of the person's need and being able to sit in that space with them, and again, non-judgmentally acknowledge what they're experiencing and feeling for those persons of older age. Because like you said, Chuck, there may be a number of things coming at them like, well, you need to. And for my well-meaning older folk, when you start off, well, you just need to do this and you need to do that, like I'm already pushing back. And we can do it to each other, right? Same age peers can do the same thing. Well, you need to get up and do this. You know what? If I could, I would have, right? I may not be in that space. And so if you can meet them where they are, as Brene Brown would always say, empathy, right, is not standing above the hole and speaking down. It's climbing in the hole. And then take a step further, compassion now is staying in that hole until you're ready to get out, while being honest with you about that process and helping you up out of it. And so, Chuck, that would be my really broad overview. That can help a multitude of people, right? Just identify it. If they're unaware of it, be very compassionate about it, wondering, sharing with them, pointing it out, and then you can point them in whatever direction is possible. It could be therapy as well. That could be something that could be helpful for them. It could be, walking with them. Any number of things. It begins with that compassion and understanding of what they may be experiencing.
Well, Rob, you have given us some very mindful and deep thinking approaches about this. That's what I've never seen you before. I've never heard you speak on this, but I like the pragmatism that you bring to the conversation. I mean, let's be real and approach it from a real perspective. So I personally want to thank you for that, because that's very important.
Yes.
And Rob, if I could piggyback on Chuck, so how would you handle it if it's a family member and you see them and you know that is at this time that they're crashing, but they may have the theory, as some other people, well, all I need is Jesus. I just need to pray and he'll change me. But you notice every year they're not changing, right? And so how do we handle that? You mentioned staying in the hole with them. How do we do that?
I found that the best way to help somebody move from a place of stuckness is kind of being just stuck enough with them. Right. So if you want to get somebody at a quicksand, you don't just run up in there, because you'll start sinking. You tie a rope to something first, tie it to yourself, and then you can go out. So you can pull yourself back in. And what I mean by that is you may have to journey with them a little bit about, hey, I noticed, again, noticing and wondering, I noticed every year that you do feel a little sad. Yeah, you know it. And I was wondering if you had S.A.D. or you had S.A.D, right? Oh, well, I don't know what that is. Oh, okay, cool. This is what I think it is. Maybe. Well, tell me about how you're feeling, right? And you just stick with them, and you just keep pointing out the wonderings. There's other things we can go into. There's a tool to help us navigate self-awareness called Jaharvi's window, because there are some things that you may be familiar with. That there are some things that some people don't know about themselves, and so through repetitive pointing it out, at some point, right? I say one time is chance, second time is coincidence, the third time it got to be you. So if you on the 20th time, maybe, just maybe, through the grace of God, that's where your prayer comes in for yourself, right? Through the grace of God, they might receive it in their spirit. That'll be harder, though, if you're speaking from a distance, right? If you're standing on the solid shores and you're talking about me in the quicksand about what I can do. Thank you. Great. All right. Keep it moving. I'll wait for the next Samaritan, right? Like that does mean nothing. It feels a little different, though. Like I said, when you tie the rope to yourself and you go out there with them and you're holding on, it's like, I feel like we're sinking, right? Do you feel that too? What do you mean? Because we shimmied a little bit and we got a little shorter. Okay. And you're just there, ready, patiently. It's a little bit like parenting, a little bit like God, ready there, waiting, hoping that they'll be able to receive this, so that the moment they do that, we out of here. Okay. But you can't force that process, and that sometimes can be the hardest thing for us. Right? That's again where that discomfort comes in. We want to force it because it feels uncomfortable, not just for them, but for us. We got to be honest about that, Pastor Marlena. We got to be real honest about that. It feels uncomfortable to be in that space. Right? I got to be respectful of time. I'll be very honest. I actually dated someone, and it was very close to, even taking some further steps, and did not realize at the time that that's what they had. And I promise you, I was in school, and I look back now and go, my gosh, it's right there. It's very hard, because the change can be drastic and dramatic. And I mean, you going out on dates, hey, you hitting me up, and now, all right, I'm gonna go down and go to sleep. Okay, all right, I'll see you tomorrow. Hey, you want to go out? I'm okay. And after a while, it's harder to take that personal. If it's a family member, right, or a close friend. And so that discomfort begins to bleed on you, and then you're pressed and you're encouraged and you feel like you want to move and do differently, not just for them, but for you. So sometimes it's okay to recognize, like, oh, no, this don't feel good for me. Again, that's why that rope matters, because you may have to pull yourself out a little bit. dust it off and then dive back
Wow.
in. Because you got to be real careful about that.
Awesome. This a lot of great information. Thank you so much for responding. And another thing, I know we're wrapping up. I think is important for us to emphasize. We talked about if we notice, but if you're by yourself and you're feeling lonely and you're feeling these feelings, and maybe no one's reaching out, it's important for you to reach out to someone. I think it's sometimes we try to I know I'm a self-solver. If I'm feeling away, I'm trying to figure out how to get my emotions right. But at some point, it may be time for you to reach out to someone else to say, I'm feeling this way, so that they can come in the hole with you. And particularly during the holidays, we hear a lot about loneliness for people who live alone or who have family members that are far away or who have passed away. And so I think it's really important for us to check on those people. But if you are one of those people, please reach out to someone because, we don't want you to feel that way. There are a lot of people out there who care about you. And so if you're starting to feel some of these things that we've described, please reach out to someone. And Rob, do you have any resources that we can share for people who are kind of in that situation of kind of being alone and just not knowing where to go?
Man, I should have. I will say you can quickly Google let me start off. In DC specifically, they actually have a hotline, not just for suicide, but a hotline for mental health. And if you wanted to talk to somebody, reach out to resources, you can do so. If you give me a few moments, I probably can Google that really quickly. So that's there. There is the national hotline for suicide as well. And again, you may think, well, I'm not suicidal. That's okay. That is a place to get resources. That is a place to quickly talk with somebody.
Okay. And just while you're doing that, we had a question for someone who joined kind of after we introduced the topic. We're talking about S.A.D, which stands for Seasonal Affective Disorder. So to summarize, it's pretty much this feeling of depression that comes around particular parts of the year. And since we're in this Christmas season, we're dealing with what some people experience during this time. While everyone else is having a good time, some of them are still dealing with a lot of emotions, more on the negative side.
Yeah, such a blessing that after this ends, this will stay up on Facebook and YouTube. So anyone can go back, play back the thing from the beginning, and be blessed and enlightened by this information.
And please, y'all, please invite me back to talk about something that's more exciting, because now I feel like I'm being sad.
You're sad going off.
Just want to keep it honest, y'all. Don't let me be the sad guy. I'm pretty excited about stuff. With all that being said, I really want to make sure that for somebody out there who needs it, right? Like, it's okay. All things make sense contextually. I love to say that, right? If you're experiencing this, it's okay, and you can get help, right? The and is so powerful. You can do this and get help. Like, you can do this and get the support that you need. There's the big push out there, Jesus and therapy. I love to say that the couch is covered, right? If you're unsure, just pray over it, because the couch is covered. You're able to get these supports and be able to find the resources that you need to be well, because that is exactly what God wants us to be, right? He wants us to be well.
Amen.
Amen.
So,
Amen.
Thank you all.
Amen.
Thank you,
Rob. It was really a gift, Rob. I mean, thank you so much for your very balanced and practical yet spiritual discussion. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
and if the mental health thing doesn't work out for you, you can try a stab at comedy too. You might have a chance.
When I tell you, I am waiting for the right connect, because that acting career, everything is being shed like shackles that were weighing me down. Y'all better find out.
Yes, sir.
No, this has been great, and thank you to our viewers, our listeners. We appreciate some of you sharing your stories in the chat about your own experiences during this time and losses that you've had. We're very sensitive to that, and thank you for being so vulnerable with our audience. We always appreciate that from all of you. And once again, Rob, thank you so much for the wealth of knowledge.
Rob. Appreciate it. Excellent.
We encourage you to share this broadcast with people, even after we've gone off air. Those who you may not even know need to hear this, or know someone who needs to hear it. So please don't forget to share this with different people. All right. And if you have some questions or topics you want us to cover, please email us at upset@aecsda.com. We're starting to chronicle a lot of the suggestions that we're getting, and we're gearing up for season 3 next year. And so we have lots of topics, and we want you to continue. Season 3 is coming up, and we want it to be better than ever before. We're going to go a little deeper. We want to upset the fruit basket even a little bit more. So bring out those topics, taboo and all. We're anxious to tackle them. And before the end of the year, we'll share some of the ones we have so far so that you can add to that list. But thank you for being our faithful viewers and listeners. We appreciate all of you. And we look forward to seeing you next Sunday, same time, same place.
Peace.
Bye, guys.
Thanks so much. Now go back, Tasha, and put those all of those uniforms on your dog and your family and make it real Christmassy.
Yes. Okay, Sally. All right, guys.
Bye-bye.